Just when you thought things couldn't get any worse for truck owners who like their V8 engines, some terrible news drops that GM has been screwing their V8 truck owners for years. GM and Chevy have been trying to cover up a ton of issues with their V8s, including but not limited to lifter failure, engine oil consumption, and even transmission issues that affect all powertrains. The NHTSA recently announced that they have opened up a preliminary probe into over 877,000 vehicles built by GM after receiving several reports of engine failures. The issue involves bearing failure in the L87 V8 engines, mainly in its pickup trucks and larger SUVs like the Tahoe and the Suburban. And the issue with these V8s is that it could actually lead to complete engine seizure or even breaching of the engine block. That's a big hole in the side of the engine block for those who don't know what breaching means. So this investigation actually covers a huge amount of GM and Chevrolet vehicles. This includes the Chevy Silverado, GMC Sierra, Chevrolet Tahoe, Chevrolet Suburban, GMC Yukon, and Cadillac Escalade trucks and SUVs from model years 2019 all the way to 2024, equipped with the L87 V8 engine. In this video I'm about to show you is pretty typical of what one of these engine failures can look or sound like.
We're having to tear the engine apart on our Yukon in order to replace some of the lifters. Basically, the problem that I was having is not with the active fuel management or the DOD, which is another problem. But if you hear this, that is the sound of a bad lifter.
According to the NHTSA, which is the auto safety regulator that looks into things like this, people who complain reported a bearing failure. Now, this bearing failure could actually result in total loss of power or movement in the engine, which actually leads to a potential increase in crashing. I mean, if your engine locks up and your wheels start spinning, or just something happens, or the driver of the car panics while this engine is failing, then obviously that could easily lead to a crash. And the problem is they didn't have any detectable problem. It means like they didn't really hear any problem, no ticking noise or anything coming up. The engine's just all of a sudden grenaded. So because you could lose power and potentially crash, that's why the NHTSA actually jumped in to investigate this. Now, a lot of people are saying that they think it has to do with the active fuel management system and the cylinder deactivation in a lot of these modern V8 trucks.
The lifter issues in this engine are caused by one major thing, and that is GM's cylinder deactivation technology, also known as active fuel management, or in later years what this engine has, dynamic fuel management. Now, unfortunately, the other V8 available in these trucks, the 6.2 liter, is also suffering from these lifter problems because, well, it also has dynamic fuel management in it.
This failure is actually very expensive to fix, and one guy did a breakdown of if your engine obviously doesn't grenade and explode, you would need an entirely new engine, but if you start hearing a ticking noise, he actually broke down what it would cost from a dealer to fix, and also if you did it yourself.
So the main killer here is you're going to be looking at $5,370 for labor. And so that's what's going to be the most expensive part of this job. That's the labor is going to be more expensive than the parts. With all this, their total for parts, as it came down here, they were looking at $2,198, and then the labor $5,370. So their total was $7,568.09 to basically put in 8 of the new lifters. So they didn't put in all new lifters. They kind of did just what they needed to, and maybe some recommendation.
Now, this is not a new issue for any of these GMC or Chevy trucks or Tahoes or Suburbans. It's actually been ongoing for a while, and there's been a class action lawsuit against engine failure for years. When you spend a crap ton of money, sometimes $75,000, $85,000, $90,000 on a new truck, you expect it with modern technology to be more reliable. But with modern engines, that's just not the case. As an example, here is a 2025 High Country, more of a cityfied trim level, and it does have their 6.2 liter Ecotec V8 engine and the 10-speed auto. This freaking thing is $79,800. And when you're spending that kind of money on a new pickup truck, you expect it to last. And the Suburbans and Tahoes are no exception to the crazy prices either. This Suburban right here is $81,175. And then if you wanted something cheaper like this Tahoe, this one right here is $69,500. And when you're paying that much for a vehicle, you just expect it to work and not have complete engine failure with only a few thousand miles on it. Engine failures in modern vehicles are becoming more and more common, and manufacturers keep adding more electronic junk to engines in the name of fuel economy and emissions. And it's really unfortunate that Chevy and GMC have had so many big issues with their V8 engines, because other manufacturers really had more reliable V8 engines. For example, this is the last generation Tundra right here, with one of the older V8 engines, and that would be the iForce 5.7 liter V8. And the engines in this previous generation Tundra was a V8, and it would just last and last forever. Some people reported 1 million miles on these trucks with just regular maintenance, and actually Toyota bought one of those 1 million mile trucks and put it in their headquarters to really show off what they could do. So like Toyota having a reliable V8 engine, they were actually forced to get rid of the reliable V8. And that is where a lot of this technology stuff is not improving things. This is a new Tundra, and funny enough, they're pretty close side by side. There's a Chevy in the middle, so it's kind of convenient for me actually while filming this, but this is the new Tundra, and they've had nothing but problems with the twin-turbo V6s, with all of the modern systems to try to improve fuel economy and reduce emissions and throwing on turbos, etc., etc. So Toyota went from a super reliable V8 to a modern twin-turbo engine that just continues to fail, and the engines in these are basically just grenading themselves. So while some companies like GM really need to improve their V8, other companies like Toyota, who had one of the most dependable V8 engines in history, had to get rid of it and go with the twin turbo because of all the government bureaucracy. And Toyota's not the only ones that had to get rid of their dependable V8 engines and replace them with a twin-turbo V6. Ford is also guilty of this as well with the F-150. Their twin-turbo V6 engines have so many more issues than buying the 5-liter V8 that used to be in a lot of these trucks and was the only choice for a long time. The Ford F-150's turbo engine, commonly the 3.5-liter EcoBoost, is known to have several issues including carbon buildup, intercooler condensation, oil leaks, ignition system problems, and potential issues with spark plugs and ignition coils, which can lead to performance issues and potential engine failure, particularly in a lot of the older models. Now, some of the newer ones, they have ironed out a lot of the issues, but there's still a lot of problems with them. And some of these problems have been reported to be like the direct injection, and a lot of the coils they use and stuff like that are just not made very well. I've even seen turbos on these trucks fail at just 30,000 miles. So far, GM is cooperating with the investigation on these V8 engines in the trucks, and I'm sure they'll do something to fix it, maybe, but it's been an issue for years in even their older engines, and with the lawsuit, I don't know if they'll actually make good on any of the fixes that they want to do. They'll probably just let these die out, slowly get replaced by turbos, and then just more than likely ignore the problem like they've been doing for years now. But since we're here talking about newer engines that have just been grenading themselves, I actually want to talk about a few older trucks really quick in this video that I think would be a better buy and that are also more reliable than some of the new stuff that's out here right now. I got a few options that if you're in the market, you should go with instead of dealing with Chevy's V8 engine explosions, Ford's trash twin-turbo V6, or even the new Tundra's horrific engine issues. Now, I'm here at a Toyota dealer to show you a bunch of different trucks that I think are more reliable than some of the newer ones that have replaced them, only because this dealership usually has a ton of used trucks on their lot. And I want to start with something that I think is really cool and that is high on the list of older reliable trucks that you should think about getting. That would be the previous generation Toyota Tacoma, like this one, because it has their super reliable non-turbo engine. Unlike the new Tacoma, which while the design is really cool on the new Tacoma, it no longer has the reliable 6-cylinder non-turbo engine. They now use a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Now, the one plus of this newer one is it does have a nice 8-speed auto, so if they just threw that 8-speed auto on one of these with the 6-cylinder non-turbo, this would make it even more of a better one to get. But this is a TRD Pro of the older Tacoma, and it is 4-wheel drive. All TRD Pros are 4-wheel drive. But this is high on the list of super reliable engines that won't grenade on you spontaneously. And since we're starting here on the Toyota train, obviously, if you're going to look for a full-size truck, any of the previous generation Toyota Tundras with the 5.7-liter V8 engines are just going to be the absolute best choice for full-size trucks that also have a reliable V8 engine, non-turbo, that will just pretty much last forever. I already talked about it with the other one I showed on that lot. But I'm serious when I say, if you want something that will last you the rest of your life and your children's life, just grab one of these previous generation Toyota Tundras, any of them really. You could even go all the way back to the first gen, but this previous generation is probably the one you should get, just because it at least has like more modern infotainment systems and a few other things that make it a lot nicer than the first generation of the Tundra. And another perk of buying one of these Tundras is that for the mileage, the price is not that bad at all. This one here is a 2018 with 65,000 miles, and it's $36,995 instead of paying $70,000 to $75,000 for one of the newer ones, which the engines totally suck. But obviously, everyone knows that the older Toyotas are super reliable, but what about other brands? You could grab a V8 F-150, like a nice trim package like Lariat or something, for quite a lot less money, and you'll also want to grab it with the V8, not the twin turbo V6. A good example would be this F-150 XLT in red, and it's not that old. It's a 2019 with 68,000 miles, which is not too bad at all for $26,995. I mean, you could get a full-size V8 pickup truck with some modern stuff on the interior and a V8 for 27 grand. That's not bad at all. And trust me, if you look at the prices of the new ones, you're going to be like, that's not bad. Obviously, here's the Lightning. I don't need to explain why you need to stay away from that one. A Raptor is not too terrible, but be aware that, you know, even though you could get it for 68,000 on a 22 model, instead of the new 2024 25s being like 95 grand, obviously you save a lot of money. These still have the twin turbo V6s that will have random like cam phaser issues and other stuff like that, although they improved it on this third generation of the Raptor. So if you're wanting something like that, you could save some money and get one just a couple years old. Old Chevy with a V8, don't get that. Now here's one truck that I think is probably the coolest V8 truck you could get for the money. It's not gonna be as reliable as the Toyota V8, but as far as reliability goes, it's still one of the better V8 engines, and they're definitely not grenading like the Chevys. And that's getting a used 1500 Ram Rebel. It has the 5.7 liter Hemi. It's a really, really good looking truck. The interior is so nice. My cousin has one of these, and he got a pretty good deal on it with like 40,000 miles or so. And it looks just exactly like this. But I think a 5-year-old Ram Rebel with the V8, super nice interior, and the price of this one's not too bad either. It's a 2020 with 45,000 miles, which is not a lot at all, for $38,995. So for 40 grand, and a new one, like a 25 model, they're actually putting a twin turbo V6 in it. A 24 model you could still get with the V8, but it's like $75,000. So I think I would rather pay 40. Anyways, that's just a couple of trucks that I think would be more reliable than grabbing one of the new twin turbo trucks or even a Chevy with the V8, because obviously their new ones up to 2024 are still having issues. But at the end of the day, when you're looking for a truck, you just gotta be really picky. Pay attention to what consumers who bought these trucks are saying, and stay away from the first couple of years of new trucks. Anyways, that's it for this one. Make sure you hit like, especially if you made it this far, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.